Oh, hey big guy, what do you be doing? Oh, nothing. I just be balling. What's up guys, Hello Pencil here, and here to do a breakdown and review for chapter 165 of Four Knights of the Apocalypse, which is known as the final group. And ladies and gentlemen, this chapter must have just had Nakaba up in the kitchen, wrist a-whipping, pen dipping in some ink, because this man was cooking. He was cooking a 5-star meal. I don't know, something about this arc has just had Nakaba, his whole wrist has been on fire. The only thing that was trash was Percy's fit, but we can ignore that because we got new characters, we got names for characters, we got backstory, we got history, we got so let's not waste any more time and let's hop right into it. Editing me. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go. What's up guys, that guy with a pencil here. Fun fact, I do mean to have it on me and keep it on me at all times. Give me another fun fact. You know, I knew Nakaba was going to do something twisted, something devious, something diabolical, just because it's Nakaba Suzuki, right? Like, this is the same guy who wrote Mayel's entire story. And, like, if you think about the twisted stuff he did to Mayel, and to Elizabeth, and to Meliodas, and pretty much darn near every single character in the darn manga. Like, if you are a major character in Sevendeadlysins, and something bad has happened to you, even in the duology, like, something's bad has happened to all of our main cast and crew. In some way, some shape, some form. Like, something bad has happened to all of them. It's just a part of the Nakaba special. But Nakaba Suzuki, I didn't think you were going to be so direct. And the fact that it's so direct makes it hurt more, and I love it! Keep doing it, Nakaba. Keep doing it. But, of course, you may be wondering what I'm talking about, so let's not waste any more time and let's actually hop into the chapter itself. So we open up and we do get to see that, yes, we are, in fact, down to the final 16. Everyone else managed to make it in some way, shape, or form. As Donnie declares, Yo, Gawain! Looks like we all made it to the final 16. Check out the gains. And, of course, Gawain is like, wow. An underling like you, too? Talk about sheer dumb luck, huh? And you know what? The best thing about this is that you can tell she is 100% serious and wanted Donnie to hear that. Because you can see Donnie's response is, hang on, what? I heard that, you know. Donnie, she turned her head, looked at you, and is genuinely shocked and surprised. Like, and I'm not sure if that hurts more or less. The fact that it was intentional. Because, like, I feel like everyone at least once in their life has accidentally insulted somebody. Like, it just happens. Like, you just be speaking, and then you don't be thinking about how you be speaking, and then suddenly it just slips out, you know? I feel like that would be like this sometimes. No, that was intentional. Like, she knew that would hurt your feelings, Donnie. And she said it anyway. just by the blase look at it, she's like, wow. But with it being the case, we see that while we did have everyone make it to the final 16, 1, it wasn't actually everyone, and 2, it's time to move on. As a big old fellow appears in the sky. Now, all of you, turn your attention up to the sky. We see Tristan, we see Edlin, we see Hauser, we see Percy, we see Nasians, but note who we don't see. We do not see Gareth, which I will admit, I'm not sure if this is supposed to be Gareth leaving. I want to say just because of the intonation in the ground, and very specifically the specks of dust left here, but there's so much dust flying about, I don't exactly know. Obviously, a lot of the dust is specifically coming off the crater that Gawain left after firing on who we'll find out is Balin. I already mentioned Gareth. Gareth is the slimmer, smaller character from last chapter, who will be making an appearance later on in this chapter. But ultimately, I don't know. I'm not sure if Nakaba just forgot, because the last chapter ended on Gareth, and this chapter is also going to end on Gareth. So it's weird that they just disappear, even though they should realistically be right here. I don't know why they would suddenly up and vanish, considering they were just in a conflict with Percy and legitimately asking them a question, but then suddenly, I don't know. Once again, Nakaba does everything himself. I wouldn't be shocked if in the rush to get this chapter out, because it's always a rush, at least from what I understand of mangaka work. Maybe it just be like that, wouldn't be like that. And obviously, I do get it. The initial part of this is to really highlight our cast and crew. We see Gawain, we see Donnie, we see Tantris or Tristan, we see Hauser, we see Edlin, we see Percy, we see Nasians. But, of course, you know who else we see? This big old hefty fellow right here. He, weirdly enough, for my Ben 10 fans out there, something about his build reminds me of Clockwork. Very specifically, I'd say UAF Clockwork, not so much Omniverse, because then again, maybe it is more like Omniverse, because Omniverse is much more round. Yeah, in fact, I'd say flip that. I think it's more Omniverse Clockwork rather than UAF Clockwork, mainly because of the build. He's very like round, and he has seemingly enough the pseudo clock aesthetic with the 9 dots around in a circle, and he has the dot rings, obviously where he speaks to the mask and the 2 round eyes. A lot of it in the thing on top, like it could be like a pseudo, I forget what that thing on top of the clock that you twist to activate is called, but for some reason, he gives me massive, like, my brain is itching, like, saying, that's clockwork, ain't it? Even though I know it's not. Strange. But, of course, this is our big, juicy, hefty MC, Capital Ni, as they declare, congrats on surviving up to this point. I keep fumbling on what voice I want to give him. Let me see. Congrats on surviving up to this point. You all have fought. I want to make him sound large, but I don't want to edit it to sound large because I found if you've ever wondered why, like, despite Arthur is showing up multiple times with the chaos eyes, why I stopped editing those filters, a lot of people don't like that. So like, I'm not doing it. So I'm trying to manipulate my own voice to like have that booming effect, but I'm not D. Bradley Baker. I cannot simply turn on a way big voice. Let me see. Congrats on surviving up to this point. You've all fought tremendously well. My name is Capadoni, and I will be your referee and MC for the Gladiator Festival. And naturally it looks gigantic, so Donnie falls for it, but Gawain immediately points out, how silly, a type of illusory magic? And this is high-level illusory magic, I will admit, to the point where I'm confident it may not actually be it, because of seemingly the control that presumably Beltreep and naturally Capadoni tend to have over this area and the people within it. As we'll see, Camelot is a lot more sentient as a structure than we may be led to believe, and I would not be shocked if people who were quote-unquote masters of certain realms have a deeper understanding and control over them than what would simply be illusory magic. As Capadoni immediately responds to Gawain's accusation and says, yes, that's right. And Donnie's surprised. I'm not sure this is supposed to be Donnie or this is supposed to be Ballin, because you do see it. Nakaba's doing a very good job of consistently keeping the characters in relative spaces and maintaining the crater and the smoke here. Once again, it's very, very good. Nakaba, yeah, he's a monster with the attention to detail. There are a lot of jokes and even jokes and like little background details that I miss in my reviews, which I typically try to make as like breakdown in detail as possible. But that being the case, yes, he in fact can hear the words of every single participant, even though presumably this isn't his main body. As Gawain says, this is illusory magic, meaning he should still presumably be somewhere completely nowhere near their location. It's not like Gawain is screaming or anything, but the question is directly asked, and we see Capadoni explain, you'll be given a rest break overnight, but you can prepare for tomorrow's main battle. But before then, I'd like all 16 of you to state your names for me, please. And naturally, Tantris is like, oh, well, shoot, we ain't gotta run smoke no more, fine. She's both blades and say, wait, right here? And naturally, Capadoni is like, yes, as I just said, give me your names right now before I tear you to pieces. Okay, he didn't say all that, but still, yes, right here. So, now, let me just lay out a scenario to you. You are a fugitive of a specific nation. You, for one reason or another, need to go into this nation. Were we all on the same page? So you have broken into this nation where you know you are wanted for X crimes. Whatever the crimes are, you are wanted for those crimes. Specifically. And you know the people in that nation, as you've previously encountered some of them, no, don't just like want you gone, but like they've tried. And the person whose jurisdiction, the area that you're under, is run by one of those people who has deliberately tried to take your life. And in fact would have succeeded if not for someone else coming in to save your cheeks. So tell me, if you were in a scenario where you had to offer up your name to an individual who is directly working underneath that person in this nation where you are wanted, tell me, would you give your real name under any circumstance? Me personally, I would not. I call myself Pencil. Just as a shorter version of that guy with a pencil. But if I were in the specific scenario, our cast and crew would be, I'm assuming like the rest of y'all, if prompted to give my name, I would laugh and smile and say, my name is Pokemon trading card game Steam Siege. Right? Because I'm not giving you my real name. Because even if I do happen to have a certain type of illusory magic working on me, I presume mentioning the name of the main group of people that this entire nation wants the heads of would be stupid. Right? So what do you think our cast and crew, all of them, Not just the idiot, all of them, including relatively smart characters like Kion, like Anne, like Nasu. What do you think they do? Do you think they come up with fake names on the spot? They stutter and struggle a little bit, but then give a fake name? Or give at least an alias or something? You would think that, right? And maybe, you know, the idiots like Percy, and the idiots like Donnie, and the idiots, like even, or maybe not even idiots, the arrogant people like Gawain would maybe fumble and immediately give their real name. No. Thank you. Every last one of, I can excuse some people here. Gareth, nice. I'm happy to know their name, if that even is their name. Once again, they seem to be built like an assassin type character, so I wouldn't be shocked if that was a fake name. But that name is important to Arthurian mythology. Balin, I also get that. He is under no pretenses to lie, as far as we know, unless this is truly Lance in Disguise, and even then that would be a fake name. Because I've seen a lot of people throwing around saying it's Lance in Disguise. Based on the sword, and the build, and the fit, I'm kind of leaning more towards not so much Lance in Disguise, but actually just straight up the reincarnation of the Demon King. The only reason I'm so hesitant about that being the case, that this is just the Demon King reincarnated, or even that the Demon King's original name was Balin, and he's like revived with just a human visage or something like that. The only reason I don't like it is because he was literally wiped from existence, and his being erased from existence entirely is not only one of the bases of Meliodas' best ability, like, the reason true magic is even worth something in a verse where multiple characters already have some version of existence erasure. Looking at you, Goddess Clan. Looking at you, Chandler. Looking at the, like, 5 other characters. Well, not 5. But, like, all those characters who have some form of existence erasure, like Ark. I think Chandler has a spell that's taken, like, one data book to just wipe you from existence. For some reason, I don't know. He just does it. But the cool thing about Meliodas is that he did wipe him out. Like, the entirety of the Demon King, the concept of the Demon King, well, the concept, but the idea of the Demon King was, like, erased, even though the main body was in an entirely separate time space. That was cool. If this does end up being the Demon King's reincarnation, from the design of the fit, to the blade, to the appearance, to the raw magical power, and the raw strength, it kind of undermines that. I ain't gonna lie, and then just raises questions. Like, you mean to tell me that gods did have souls? I guess it makes sense they had souls. Sorry, I'm going down a completely different path on a pure hypothetical. I'll talk about maybe Balin being the Demon King in its own video. Once again, just based on, like, the build. I want to wait a little bit more. I'll probably wait, like, a few more chapters till we actually see him battle and see more of his abilities, and then him just standing there and facing Gawain's attack. So, we'll see. But ultimately, like I was getting on before we cut to Balin and Gareth, and obviously the residents of Camelot in Deodra, Rothis, and Turret, Percy, why would you give your real name? Are you stupid? Hauser, why would you give your real name? Are you stupid? Nonsense, why would you give your real name? Are you stupid? Gawain, why would you give your real name? Are you stupid? Isolde, why would you give... Especially Isolde and Kion. Especially Isolde and Kion. You two should know better, as we'll find out later on in this very chapter. So the fact that y'all gave y'all real names is so stupid. But they gave their real names. Anglehad doesn't just give her fake or her pseudonym name, Anne, which could be a common name that I could understand multiple people being named. But Anglehad, maybe that was a more common name at the time, but still she gave her full government name. Pelio, once again, he's likely super duper under the radar, so I can give him a pass. And all of our, like, non-Camelot crew, our Britannian crew, our Leonis crew, I can give Pelio a pass, because who knows Pelio, right? Like what? He didn't even do anything against Valiant or either the individual cast. He was like, he fought Pelgar. So like, if Pelgar was here, I get that, but once again, that's barely it. So I can understand Pelio. I can let Pelio slide. But Hauser, you were literally one of the 2 captains of Camelot's main enemy. One of the 2 magic captains, and you give your name? And presumably, remember, well, you may be able to cover this under the fact that, well, Percy has magic rings on that deter any sort of attention to him. So does Nasians, so does Gawain, so does Anne, so does Tantris, or Tristan, and Donnie. Sure, I can give that excuse to them, but not Isolde and Kion. Gawain didn't give them rings. Why are they being stupid enough to give their real name? Hauser doesn't have a ring. Why is he being stupid enough to give his real name? I don't know. And presumably, this class character here, who may end up being the sleeper pick to win the entire tournament, which would be hilarious, mystery package. That's Gother. If that's not Gother, I have gum. I have icebreakers. I will get the coldest bottle of water I can find that's not frozen. I will put a whole bunch of icebreakers in my mouth, chew them, and then drink that entire bottle of water straight on camera. If that's not Gother. But mystery package over here is the only intelligent character who decided to actually keep their name and face a mystery. And notably, Capridoni asked no questions to that. So it's not even like they had any reason to really give their true names. It's not like they were under duress. It's not like Capridoni has the ability to see through power that was going to ask the Clifford. No, they could have said anything. They could have called themselves Rubber Sock. And then they would have been fine. I just don't get why they're all of it is so stupid. There are varying degrees of stupidity. And I have to say, Isom and Kai, they may have to be at the top, if only for the fact that they should know better. These two should know better, as we'll find out. But, of course, let's keep moving forward as we see the Capridoni says, "Alright, thank you very much. We will pick your matchups at random and announce them to you later on. Now everyone, have a nice trip back to the surface." And boom, they're all teleported back immediately. Once again, further implying, at least to me, that Beltriep, or likely Capridoni, or both, have a lot higher dominion over this realm and its existence than what was initially implied. Or at least what I thought. Once again, while Pelgar did have his own realm, he didn't seem to have any sort of fundamental control over it or others inside of it. He couldn't immediately banish the Holy Knight that came to visit, or the Chaos Knight that came to visit, or any of his minions. He just couldn't do that. And we've seen Ironside in his own realm, and he didn't seem to have any innate control over that either. He couldn't suddenly just remove Diodra on command. He had to tell Turret and Rothis to do that for him. So I'm assuming that this may be an extension of Beltriep's ability, which seems to have something to do with cutting space, or cutting / manipulating space, or this is just the jurisdiction he has specifically over Annwfyn as its master, as its head, as its leader. And thusly, I do think Arcas is in some sort of deeper danger, and especially considering the idea that Capridoni does have all this name information. And once he just has that information, he's going to say it to someone, presumably Beltriep. And while Beltriep looking at them may have his hostility deterred, I highly doubt hearing the names Percival and Gawain, the two Knights of Prophecy, one of which he knows for a fact was recently revived. Yeah, something probably go click in his head. So if that doesn't happen, if Nakopa just lets this slide, I am gonna be like, that's a little bit of bad writing. But we'll see. Once again, that's just me focusing on the details, mainly because I know our casting crew is not necessarily being the most subtle, showing up and showing out as they are, but at least there was a previous excuse. Them all immediately giving their names when a lot of them should know better, and a lot of these characters are smarter than that. It's just a little silly. But with it being the case, we do get to see that Percy's amazed that they're already back at the tower base, and Noxings even notes, yes, in an instant too. Once again, further implying the idea that, yes, there is some deeper manner of control going on here that they maybe should not trust so much or be so okay with. But once again, teach their own. And we do get to see that at the base of the tower, there was a setup of an underground town by Beltriep. Next, look at the tower premises. What's all this? Lord Beltriep has been generous enough to provide a whole underground town for you. Winners and losers may eat and drink their fill, rest well and prepare to fight or watch tomorrow's epic battle. Once again, everybody's here, all the different residents of Annwfyn. And I think it still is poignant. The idea that Annwfyn, and it will be established later on, that Annwfyn is basically an ever-expanding land, the fact that only one person can win at their once-in-a-year festival does ultimately leave this generosity and this kindness in a much more sour light. Once again, getting people comfortable with the idea of consistently coming back, consistently giving their hopes, giving their wishes, giving their dreams to Annwfyn, and by proxy to Kemla, and by proxy maintaining the entire subspace. Or really multiple subspaces. Once again, the more and more information we get on Camelot, the more and more impressive the verse becomes. And by the verse, I literally mean Arthur. I like chaos. It's hard to argue I don't know, I'll have to check what the fandom consensus is, but I still feel like no one really scales true chaos or true full power Chaos King Arthur. As much as I love Lance, I don't even think he scales properly. Just because the one interaction we have between the two it kind of means nothing. Sure, regular human Arthur was in danger to the point where Chaos had to come out to defend him. By the time he locks in, Arthur does get a little bit shook, but then he casually no-sells Lance's attack. And once again, we still don't know if that was truly full power, fully manifested Arthur. We have no idea. And even if it is, we know he wasn't wielding Excalibur, which we also know amps him drastically, because it is the holy weapon of holy weapons. But all that being the case, the power of Camelot, well, it is built on, in my opinion, somewhat shaky ground. The idea that you do need wishing energy or hopes and dreams to maintain it, even though obviously our main universe in Sevendeadlysins is not built on that. None of the other realms are built on such weird, fundamental yet fragile properties that they need to keep stealing land and making people hope and dream. But still, I don't know. I'll take it. But with it being the case, we see everybody eating, munching, crying, fiending, doing their best in this underground town. And notably, we see that a lot of people are very disappointed and mad and sad as they sit here, cry, and eat. I do like these things. They are not only just a callback to that one guy that I mentioned earlier that visited Pelgard's house after Anne, Donnie, and Gother visited, along with Bors, but also they are a direct callback to Grudge of Edinburgh. If you'll remember the creatures that Death Pierce had control. My brain was like, who? I've not watched that movie since it came out. But the creatures that Death Pierce had control over, this is once again an extension of those creatures. They essentially seem to be the Camelot generics. Like, ultimately, if you have some sort of tie to Camelot and you need nondescript soldiers, this is going to be what you'll get. Now, if someone could remind me, I don't remember if these soldiers were specifically made out of other races, or if it was just that one mage from Grudge of Edinburgh that was made out of the other races that came to be like some ultimate fusion that had all the properties that Death Pierce needed to have a great, strong mage. And meanwhile, these things were kind of just empty husks. I forget, but I think they were mostly empty husks. Want me to be absolutely wrong. Please correct me, because I do forget. However, with it being the case, we do get to see that Anne mentions it's not really the nightmare the rumors painted, I'd say. And naturally, Percy and Donnie just immediately give in because they are idiots. And Donnie says, "Give me some beer." And Percy says, "One large Annwfyn pot." Now, naturally, I was going to get on their case, specifically Donnie's, for, sipping that drink underage. But technically, no. Even in the current day, in the UK, where Britannia is based off of, Donnie is a legal adult. And at 18 years of age, you can begin knocking back those drinks. And at least, if from what I've heard from my family who lives over in the UK, they start knocking it back much earlier than the legal age. So, with it being the case, technically, can't get on Donnie's case. So, you're fine, Honor Boy. However, we do get to see that ultimately, they realize that Annwfyn kind of isn't so bad. They're not waist deep in the dead, and Gawain immediately gets supersized pudding, and food doesn't seem to be an issue. There's nothing wrong here. What's so bad about Annwfyn? Well, one, there are no homes. You live in rocks. Your bed is going to be a rock. But also, we have the two characters whose case I got on earlier, coming in to offer a little bit more explanation on the mystical, magical, wonderful properties of Annwfyn, as they declare, "But there's no getting out of here. We'll neither kill you nor let you live, for Annwfyn will feed upon your very desire to live or escape." What? You guys? Isolde and Kion! So Donnie and Nasi instead come with her. And I still do like how Kion is. He's more tsundere than he is hateful. And you may be like, are those the same thing? Not necessarily. He doesn't get mad at Donnie or Nasi or even any of the crew. He just goes, he's still, like, there are just some people like Kion. Obviously not in, like, the horrible things that Kion did sense, but, like, there are people like Kion who, no matter how, like, much they soften up to you, this is the most affection you will ever get. A grunt. And we see that Percy does reveal himself to two of our remaining characters. Now with Isolde and Kion being fully informed on Percy's resurrection here, and I love both of their reactions, and I love the context of both of their reactions in regards to what Percy is, or who Percy is relative to each of them. Now that only leaves two. Tristan's proper reaction, because I'm presuming he's going to have a reaction after being freed from the Tantra state, and we're calling it the Tantra state for a reason. Once again, this chapter does give us answers, though it does raise more questions. At the same time, Lance. He's the one who, in my opinion, out of the other knights was the most affected negatively, based on what Bond mentioned at the start of part 2, with his son spending a whole bunch of time locked in his room after Percy's end, and obviously him one-shotting Mortlock with a blunt blade. So, like, clearly, Lance is going to have a massive emotional reaction. I am very excited to see that. My toes, they curl. Oh, they cracked. That's not good. But still, Percy appears and says, "Yeah, so did I." And both Isolde and Kion has specific different reactions. Isolde goes, Percival? And Kion goes, the life spirit. I do love how both of them view him differently. Ultimately, Isolde, thanks to the nature of her magic, has nothing really to do with the spirits, and thusly she can't really see Percy as anybody other than Percy, even if she does know that he is in fact a life spirit. And Kion, being the summoner type, is like, the life spirit. Because obviously, while he does summon spirits of all different kinds of varieties, just last chapter we saw him summon an earth golem and then another type of golem. Yeah, presumably the thing that gives all things in existence, and including possibly the very worlds themselves, life. yeah, that would be a little bit bamboozling to see, especially after it randomly left you 2 years ago. And of course, we see Hauser roll up and be like, yeah, hey, you all made it in, huh? I never doubted it. And both are shocked to see, Knight Captain Hauser. And even the Donnas is like, you're here too, Unc? Oh no. Unc, please. Don't do this, Unc. And we see that Hauser says, and I'll admit, the stash has grown on me. At first I really liked it, then I didn't like it, but now I'm more so in the middle, leaning towards liking it. I still like the stash on Hauser. Once again, I do think it's good to make him look older, because if you cut that off, he's just Donnie. That's why I'm fine with him having the stubble before pre-time skip, and I'm fine with him having the stash post-time skip. I kind of wish he did just have a full beard, but I know that's supposed to be Guild Thunder's things on its fine, but I'll take the stash. I like it. As he says, my, you've both grown splendidly, haven't you? Your dad's worried about you, Kion. Which is nice. Once again, I feel bad. We didn't really get to see much of Guild Thunder and Margaret and how they feel about their child missing. And honestly, for what we saw of Meliodas and Elizabeth and the fact that their child was missing, I'll admit it was very, very underwhelming. But that aside, I'm happy that it's at least being acknowledged that Kion does have loving parents who care about his whereabouts, especially after they lost him for so long to Vivian initially, which is a chapter I still need to go back and review with a couple other chapters. But with it being the case, we see that they completely ignore Hauser, as naturally, while he is a cool guy and Kion's a literal uncle, if not biologically, the return of Percy is massive, considering in that case, the prophecy itself has kind of recanonized, where for the longest time they were kind of fighting essentially an empty battle, as they didn't really have a prophecy on their side. But now with Percy back, and obviously his reveal being a life spirit, yeah, that's going to massively shock the two people who have been fighting blindly for 2 years, hoping for the best. And we see that when Isolde and Kion like, no, that can wait. Is this really him? Hauser clarifies, oh, you bet he is. He only woke up a few days ago. Just in time to save my life just now. And we see that even Donnie is like, wait, whoa, Broski, is that you? You're in this too, Edlin? And Edlin admits, well, yeah, but I did lose. However, Pelio managed to squeak his way into the final 16, and Pelio is very insulted by the idea that he had to sneak in, as he says, I did not sneak my way in, you. Come on, Boris, you say something too. Only for Boris to be very, very sad, as he was also eliminated. As we see, he is crying over the fact that he has now ultimately realized that, yeah, he ain't never getting a chance for him. No. But once again, Boris is such a weird character. Because, like, he grew up in Camelot. Ain't that weird? Like, he grew up in Camelot by himself. Because remember, his dad never remanifested. It was only his sister. So he and his sister, while he was still a child, grew up all by himself. Like, Boris is a strange character. I like Boris's character. I like what he does for Camelot. But, like, he's a weird fella. But still, yeah, him and Nasians are in the same boat, where ultimately, Nasians wants Percy, not happening. And it's Boris wants Anne, not happening. But with it being the case, we do get to see that Percy is slurping and explaining the whole plot. Well, we're in the middle of reassembling the four knights, and we came here because we found that Tristan was here in Annwfyn. And Gawain mentions, right, but when we met him, he was all like, my name is Tantris, and pretended not to know us. All kinds of other nonsense too. What the heck happened to him? And Donnie admits, I don't know if we can help him or whatever, but can we talk? Because he can't stay like that forever, which is a very good point. Ultimately, while Tristan doesn't seem to have lost any power, it doesn't matter. They still need him as Tristan, one of the four knights of the apocalypse who's going to fight alongside them, not at best a neutral enemy who's trying to escape. However, with that being the case, with old mystery package here, I think this little bag fellow right here, who once again, I think is Gother, will probably end up helping with Tristan. It really depends on how Tristan's condition works, because once again, Nakaba's going to answer some questions in a little bit, but he's also going to raise infinitely more questions to those answers he just gave. As we see, no, stay away, please, you're scaring me. But we see that Isolde and Kion both are actually quite concerned. If anything, Kion is angry with the idea of Tantris, not Prince Tristan, as he says, Prince Tristan, Isolde and I had just embarked on our undercover mission to Camelot. There we did something we never should have. We saw the bizarre things that happen in Camelot. We had lost something precious in our reality. so we try to escape it. And Boris, once again, the reason I like Boris as a character, he can immediately relate to this, as remember, he lost his sister, and ultimately he had moved to Camelot for it, as Anne realizes, oh, you mean... And Isol looks down as they remember what they saw. And of course, Isol feels the most guilty, because in her mind, she still is the one responsible for the death of the person they directly revived. Yes, we wished for him to come back. We see, presumably, a younger Isolde, Kion, and Tristan. Tristan armored up, Isolde still in her current fit, and Kion still in his current fit, but without the haircut. As Jade is back. Remember Jade? I say remember Jade. He's been gone for a while. Like, I think bro's been dead for only 2 years, if not more. If not more. Did he die pretty well? I forget. But still, he's been gone for a minute. And he's back. Isolde. Kion? And Prince Tristan. How are you so stupid? Seeing and hearing Jade, something we never expected to do again, brought us all to tears. All we could do was praise the miracle that Camelot had brought us. And we see that ultimately, while Kion is furious, Jade is still bashful, and it's Jade. He's back, right? As we see, they chat, they talk, Jade holds a map and guides, he spars with Kion, he helps Isolde up a cliff, and ultimately they explain, still, we were Team Tristan, defenders of Britannia. We kept fighting the Chaos Knights we found. And note, let me see, note who's back here with him, but note what he's not doing. Kion, using magic. Isolde up in the front, with an explosion in the background using magic. And Tristan, I forget, once again, I need to reread part 1. So, correct me if I'm wrong, have we ever seen, I think, did we? Am I tweaking? Did we ever see it? Has he used Hellblades before? I remember, I think he did. Did he use it against Schwartz? I need to go reread that. I forget if he used Hellblades against Schwartz. Or if Schwartz was the one who used Hellblades on him, and then Tristan negated it. Or vice versa. I think Hellblaze was used previously by Tristan. For some reason, like, the casual use of Hellblaze here was crazy for me. Like, my brain kind of just glitched. I was like, whoa, Tristan, you doing that? But he's using Hellblaze magic. Isolde is using her explosion magic. And Kion is using, presumably, summoning magic. Once again, though, he's drawn with 2 gloves here, which I think is actually a mistake. Because remember, if you'll remember, continuity-wise, he should only have one of the gloves that Macduff had. If you'll remember, the gloves that multiply one's power tenfold. One of those was left on Macduff's arm, I think. I forget. Because he's drawn earlier in the chapter with only one of them, I think. We'll see later. But I don't think both gloves were maintained. I think one of them was destroyed either by the gigantic fire explosion he did, or by, like, the explosion that Isolde left on his arm. Like, I don't think Macduff had both gloves, and I think Kion only stole one. Because he got his one from Teniac. Because if you remember, what Macduff did to make it fair, quote-unquote, was he took Teniac's whistle and gave her the remaining glove. And then it was Teniac who told Kion, hey, you can take this glove from me. It'll give you strength 10 times your base strength. And Kion was like, oh, really? And then stop it out. I specifically remember that because I drew that for that chapter review. But with it being the case, I don't think he ever got the other glove. I think that got lost to the explosion, essentially. So it is a little bit strange to see him drawing 2 gloves, but this could just be a generic glove. But still, all of them are using magic, except for Jade. And if we even look at Jade's weapon, that's not the weapon he was wielding before. I don't think he was a sword wielder. That's just a basic sword. I don't actually remember what Jade's weapon was, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't. Was it a sword? Hold on. Now I'm about to go back in time, but I don't think it was a sword. Hold on. Jade, 4 knights. Oh, why can't I type knights? 4 knights of the Ababalaba. 4 knights of the Ababalaba. Let me see. Oh, maybe he just was a flat-out sword wielder. Oops, my brain was straight lagging. All right. Never mind, bro. Was always a sword wielder. But still, note, he's not wielding magic. That's the big thing. Yeah. So he was a sword wielder. My bad. But ultimately, he's not using magic. Because he barely understood his magic. And that's going to play into things later. As we see, but as we did, our minds begin to wonder if Camelot truly deserved to fall after all. So they were deeply falling for the Camelot ruse, the Camelot okie doke, and Tristan is chilling. as they roll and relax over another tough day. Tristan is now in his post-time skip Tantris outfit. Isolde is still in her old outfit, however, her new outfit, technically, not her pre-time skip outfit, but the bow is still on her head, note that. And she says, once things calm down a bit, Jade, why don't you return to Leonis and let Mom and Dad see you? Interesting how she says Mom and Dad. I guess she's referring to his Mom and Dad, but she doesn't say your Mom and Dad see you. But Jade goes blank-faced and says, what were my parents like again? And naturally kind of asks, huh? How would you be asking me? Huh? How would asking me help, man? That does not sound like a kind line, but he says it. And we see Isolde say, don't be silly. You used to brag about them all the time. But one day, it finally dawned on us. Anything we didn't know about Jade, he didn't either. What I tried to tell you back in Walnock, when I stepped up to defend you, and you see Isolde smiling at first, but Jade admits, I'm sorry. I don't recall any of that. No, he was nothing more than our own hearts and memories reflected back at us. Why are there all these things I can't remember? This is weird, right? Don't just stand there, say something. Can't you, Kion? Prince Tristan? Isolde? And then he dissipates. So, once again, I knew that Nakaba was going to do something with Jade. In fact, ironically enough, when I looked up, and this is probably just because like my Google search engine is naturally, am I logged in on Safari? I'm not, but my old video popped up. But the death of Jade, what's next for the false Twilight Jade? Yeah, I knew Nakaba was gonna do something with it. You don't just off a character then introduce the idea that a character can come back in Camelot and not play with it. I did not think it was gonna be this direct and this visceral. Because they got Jade back. They traveled with Jade. They worked with that fake Jade. They got the attachment to the fake Jade. But ultimately, due to that discrepancy that popped up a lot earlier, since Jade was a friend, not a sibling, if you remember, the reason Boris lasted so long and never got sent to Annwfyn is because he lived in that delusion and was a child and didn't know better and knew a whole lot about his sister up until that point. Jade immediately vanished in front of their eyes. Now, naturally, we still don't know the exact time period. We don't know how long it was before the Jade incident happened. Presumably, it happened quite quickly, though, and I think it was at least, maybe it was a multi-month period, I think. And Jade immediately disappearing in front of their eyes, brutal. Just how I like it, Nakaba. Keep cooking. Because that kind of opened up for the idea of this pain for all of these characters. Once again, Kion and Isolde both react in interesting ways. I think Kion is a good mix of both of their reactions. You can tell by the gritting of the teeth, yet the tears, he's sad and angry. You can tell by Isolde's straight tears that she's genuinely sad to see Jade essentially die again in front of their very eyes, once again, because of them and their own minds. Once again, they all assume that Jade dying is their fault. If you'll go back, I remember this specifically when reviewing the Walnut chapters. They very specifically believed it was all their fault in some way, shape, or form. Tristan blamed himself, Kion blamed himself, and Isolde definitely blamed herself as she's the one who needed to be saved by Jade. But I love how Kion reacts with tears and anger. Isolde reacts with sadness, but Tristan similarly reacts with pure anger. No tears, no nothing. In fact, he's the only one who doesn't cry. And now, I know one of Tristan's eyes is naturally darker than the other, but at least in my opinion, this is Tristan's demon side flaring up. Because if you'll remember, a lot of the demonic entities in Seven Deadly Sins are heavily triggered, and their power growth and their respective biology is triggered by extreme emotion, especially rage. We see this with Meliodas, we see this with Zeldris, we see this with Zestarosta. Typically, the more angry or mad they get, the more their power releases, that dark power. And it leads to Camelot immediately exercising them. And this is interesting, because it didn't happen to Boris. If you remember, Boris willingly gave up his sister, but didn't get dropped into a hole to Annwfyn. And that's what they explained happened to them. They all fell into the hole. The rage and despair for Camelot that we felt erased the vision of Jade and plunged us into Annwfyn. So that seems to be the differentiating factor with what happened with Boris versus what happened to them. The reason Boris didn't get immediately banished to Camelot when he accepted the passing of his sister is because he accepted it. He didn't feel mad at Camelot for providing him a fake sister or anything like that. If anything, he may have still felt grateful, but since he didn't feel rage and hatred or sadness and despair to Camelot, he wasn't immediately banished to Annwfyn. But they were all immediately banished to Annwfyn. However, like I said, well, this does answer the question of how they got here, why they were here, what they were doing here, and how they got where they got. What it doesn't answer is what happened to Tristan. And we see that Isolde explains, that's our punishment for believing in Camelot, even for a moment. And admits, no, if we ever really did lose Percival, we'd have done the same thing, I'm sure. Funny thing is, though, no, she's right. They never did lose Percival. His body was always alive. They knew that from the start, which is interesting, because I think at the end of part 1, they explain he has no heartbeat. So, like, for all intents and purposes, they should just believe Percival died. But I apparently know his body was still alive and kept growing, even if, like, all vital signs of life were gone. Because I still remember, like, not seeing him bleeding down, like, listening to his heart up, but apparently nothing happened. So I'm not sure what changed. If Percy's body was literally just still aging, even though it wasn't alive. I don't know. It's a weird thing. But ultimately, the reason Donnie and Anne, despite diving in and out of Camelot a whole bunch over the 2-year time skip, never got trapped, is because they never manifested a fake Percy. Because they had the hope in the real Percy. And thusly, Camelot had nothing to manipulate with them. But even then, I still think an interesting story could be told, could have been told, or still can be told with both of their respective mothers. If you remember, Anne lost her mom a long time ago. We don't know the context for that. That's still a mystery from all the way back in the early series. And Donnie also lost his mom. So it's interesting that both of them are well, it's not even interesting. It's good for both of them that they've accepted that, and Camelot was not able to rip out those emotions and manipulate them from that trauma of losing their respective mother figures. Good stuff, Donnie. Good stuff, Anne. Nice work. But with that being the case, I do like how Anne does immediately rationalize with them and say, no, don't worry, we would have fallen for the same thing if we did not have hope in another sense. Jade truly is gone. And honestly, I like that. Sure, do I still wish there was some sort of way that Jade was used more like manipulatively directly, as in like Arthur himself realizing that's a weak link and he could hypothetically manipulate Tristan through manipulating a copy of Jade. As we've seen, he's able to create copies of people using other races and stuff like that. Yeah, it could have been neat. But then again, this is fine too. Once again, it's more direct, it's more brutal, it's more painful, and it still leads to an interesting arc. It doesn't exactly erase the possibility of Jade and his death still being used for character development or character interaction or character manipulation later on in the future. It's just not about being quick, fast, and dirty with it and causing emotional trauma to our characters, which is why I love them. But with it being the case, we see that Isolde wakes up in Annwfyn, and she admits, I found Kion quickly afterward. But tracking down Prince Tristan was much harder. By the time we finally did, over a year later, I don't know either of you people at all, and my name is Tantris, not Tristan. Now, Isolde, let's go. So, this does raise questions on questions on questions on questions on questions. Obviously, with Isolde, the real one still existing, we know this Isolde is fake. But why though? Because if you'll remember, Annwfyn is specifically meant to be the punishment for those who feel hatred and rage against Camelot. And while we know that characters are able to produce certain replicas or images in other realms, in Pelgar's realm, we know he has his son Richard. In Boris's home little realm, wherever he was, he had his little sister. Those are realms that aren't Annwfyn, that aren't punishments, that aren't cauldrons, that are meant to specifically drain the wishes out of you. So why did Tristan, 1, manifest his own little copy of Isolde that's completely different from the one he actually knows and loves? And 2, why did he go through this? As we get an explanation, that's one thing. It took an entire year, over a year, to track down Tristan once they got into Annwfyn. So the initial period, because remember, the time skip is only 2 years. Our cast and crew was 16, now they're all 18. The time skip was only 2 years. So the whole Jade trauma incident took less than a year. And then a year passed, and presumably more time passed for kind of get a haircut, and then to exist in Annwfyn for a while. But presumably it wasn't so much time that they could get to a gladiator festival, because Tristan or Tantris nor Isolde nor Kai mentioned actually being in one before. They just mentioned the perils of Annwfyn. But all that still raises the question of why Tristan is like this, considering, well, for all intents and purposes, he should just be like them. And we get a pseudo-explanation that I don't want to take at face value because it seems a little bit too vague. As Isolde admits, Tantris is the alias Prince Tristan assumed whenever he was working undercover. That, I fear, is the one memory he has left. Oh no. Now, before we get into the hilarious reaction of 2 of our idiots, our beloved idiots, I call them idiots of love, trust me, but why? Why did that happen to Tristan? Why does he have a fake Isolde? Why were his memories only sacrificed? And does that mean Isolde and Kion were going by their real names the entire time? And why did Annwfyn specifically target Tristan for that? I like to imagine, once again, this is going to be straight headcanon until it gets confirmed, or maybe it never gets confirmed. I like to believe that with the subtle hint of him about to tap into his demonic powers here, further than presumably he was doing here with the presumably earlier use of Hellblaze, the system glitch that works around Camelot in keeping non-humans out flickered and like recognized but failed to recognize Tristan. Kind of like how when you put up a firewall, some people can still get through it. That's kind of what happened. So the Camelot firewall triggered once it felt extreme amount of demonic presence. It was like, whoa, it's like a demon's in here. And then, but ultimately that system notification overlapped with the giving up hope in Camelot notification, and they both clashed. So the properties of the initial realm they were in, creating an ideal, and we know Tristan following the ideal of Tantris in order to maintain undercover status, in combination with his demonic half, ended up glitching the system. So when he ended up in Annwfyn, he still had the properties of a fake world trying to correct him. Yet at the same time, Annwfyn auto-deleted him, as it took him in. And then that glitch ended up affecting Tristan on a spiritual level and a mental level, which allowed it to just hard wipe his memories and still give him the properties of another realm of Camelot, which was meant to give him a fake ideal. However, the only thing that still doesn't make sense about any of that, and that weird little theory I came up with, is why is Isolde small? Because we know Tristan likes tall women. Because he's just like his daddy. And he's just like me, for real. But like, that's the thing. Why is he small? Why is she small? Because we know Isolde likely wasn't playing that, even if she did have an alternative name. But considering this fake Isolde still has the name Isolde, I don't know why this is happening. This is still strange. And we know that it's not Beltrupe's fault, because he didn't know Tristan was here. In fact, until Gawain put the things on, he was just about to find out that Tristan was there. So I have no idea how it happened. I'm assuming it's some sort of glitch in the Camelot system. Because ultimately, the whole hybrid issue, the fact that Gnostians were able to get into Camelot as easily as they did at all, goes to show that the system's really, really messy, and Arthur's maintaining a whole lot, probably way more than he should be maintaining, and it's going to cause issues like this, where ultimately any sort of exceptions or breakings of the rules probably cause glitches and overlaps and world breaks, and this is an example of a world break. And it ended up breaking Tristan's own mind. Now, naturally, the real Tristan does still seem to be somewhere inside, as we saw last chapter when he stopped himself from attacking Isolde on sheer instinct. In spite of knowing that that's not his Isolde, and the Tantris ideal and personality being completely taken over, he like hard glitched and could not attack Isolde. So the real Tristan is still somewhere in there, and that's why I think Mystery Pack is going to play a role in restoring the real Tristan and sort of altering the system error, if you will. Pure straight headcanon. Absolute me wildin', but that's my thoughts. However, let's keep going. As we see that Donnie and Percival both point out, isn't Tantris like the most obviously fake name in the world for him? And Donnie says, yeah, that name sucks too. Both are correct, but y'all gave y'all real names earlier this chapter. I cannot take this criticism seriously from either you, because one, you're both idiots. Two, you're both incentives. And three, y'all did worse. At least he came up with a fake name. Even if it is a bad one, he came up with a fake name that actually does have another meaning. But you two, that would suck. But with it being the case, and does immediately tell them to shut up and just keep eating. As ultimately Hauser's like, whatever. We'll get nephew? Maybe nephew? I'm not sure if Tristan would view them in the same way. He probably views Gilthunder that way, but I feel like Hauser and Gilthunder, despite them being close, there wasn't really much of a tie between Hauser and Meliodas like there was between Gilthunder and Meliodas. So maybe Gilthunder ain't unk to Tristan, but still he's like, whatever. Well, for now, we should all rest for tomorrow. And Percy says, but I'd like to eat a little more. And Nasi immediately points out, a 2-year appetite, huh? A 2-year-old appetite, huh? Because once again, Percy's body has not eaten in forever. And presumably he does not need to eat. He probably doesn't need to drink. He probably doesn't need to do anything. He's life itself. He can probably just make whatever he needs to make. Like, he was growing without a spirit inside his body. So, like, clearly, he's still built like that. However, naturally, he goes on to eat a little bit more, or try to, as he says, I want to try everything on the menu during this festival. He's looking around, he runs, specifically into the person who he was fighting last chapter, Gareth, as they drop their dinner on his face, as they say, aw, my dinner. So, once again, this does raise the question, hey, Gareth, buddy, pal, where'd you go? And where's Ballin? Gareth, you're neat, where's Ballin? Because both of those are apparently names from Arthurian mythology that mean very big things, as they're both Knights of the Round Table, I do believe. So, these guys could become future allies, could become future antagonists. Regardless, I'm excited to see it. But, of course, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, please do me a favor and leave potluck, POT, Luck. Potluck in the comment section down below. And thanks for watching. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you hit that little notification bell so you don't miss out on every second of the channel. Also, do happen to have a Patreon down below, or you can support me for as little as $1 things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. So now become a member of the channel for as little as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. So those perks include the live reactions to the series I happen to review, including a 26-minute live reaction to this very chapter, and free variations of all my videos, and become a $25 Patreon or a $25 member. You can order whatever video you want. Also, I do a link to my Ko-Fi in the description down below, where you can drop 5 beans for a short video, 25 beans for a long video, or any beans at all. Any support is always greatly appreciated. Now, thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is that guy with the pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our $3 members: Zara, Greyhound, Eternal Flame, NMA, Real Rare, Red Wolf 4765, Astro, Brandon Payne, G Prosper, and Glacier XZ. And I'd like to give a thank you to our $5 patrons: Midnight Lord 21, Kevin Encarnacion, Sean, Igneel Lind, and A+A. And I'd like to give a thank you to our $7 members: Fine and Austin Wimberly, A Uchiha, along with Yuki Ally. And I'd like to give a big ol' thank you to our $10 members: Robbie Uchiha, J Warrior, and AZ Void. And I'd like to give a thank you to our $10 patrons: Overlord Zero, Joaquin Munoz, and Idemo Kami. And I'd like to give a final, giga, legendary, superhuman, beyond the bounds of reality thank you to our That Guy with a Pencil tier patron, okay, Calvin Elder.